What's good, y'all? Welcome to my review for Lilo and Stitch 2025, the live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch. We are finally here, ladies. I finally got to see the movie. It came out on Disney Plus relatively recently. I finally got the chance to finally sit down and watch the film. Now, you guys know me. I've mentioned this in previous videos when I was reacting to the trailers when the movie was coming out, that Lilo and Stitch for a while has always been, was my favorite Disney movie growing up. I love the movie. I love the TV show, the sequels it got, man. I loved Lilo and Stitch growing up. This was my shit back in the day, man. And obviously, I was excited when it got announced I was getting a remake, because more Lilo and Stitch for me. I love me some Lilo and Stitch. The trailers look great, man, and I was excited to see the film. Now, as you guys know, I didn't see the film in theaters, but obviously I saw all the discourse surrounding the film and the response to the film as it came out from just random people on Twitter, some YouTubers I follow, and of course from some of my friends that my mutuals I follow on Twitter. One of them, so I speak, shout out to her, man. Being particularly outspoken. That's where outspoken about the film and her opinions on. She tweeted about it a few times when she did see the film, and I think she also mentioned some of the Twitter spaces I was in with her a couple times. I'm not entirely sure about that, but yeah. So, we'll talk about that later in the review and everything, man, and, we'll go on to that. But anyway, guys, let's jump right. So, the movie is directed by Dean Flesher, if I'm saying it right, Camp, and stars, I know I'm going to butcher some of these names, Sydney Agudong, I feel like I'm saying that wrong, Zach Galifianakis, Billy Magnus, Tia Carrier, if I'm saying that right, Chris Sanders, and many more. And the plot of Lilo and Stitch, the same as the movie, as the original film, honestly. Experience the wildly funny and touching live-action reimagining of Disney's beloved animated classic. When the lonely girl named Lilo adopts Stitch, a rambunctious alien puppy, that's up for debate, Stitch helps mend Lilo's broken family, but not without wreaking her hilarious havoc and mischievous fun on the Hawaiian Islands. Now, first of all, I gotta say, the cast overall for this film is solid, man. Now, I will say one thing, my biggest critique of the film in terms of the casting, man, is without a doubt, Zach as Jumba. Now when I say he's bad, when I mention him specifically as Jumba, I don't think his performance is necessarily bad. I just think he is terribly miscast because he sounds nothing like Jumba. If you guys remember Jumba, he was a mad scientist. He had a bit of a German accent to him, man. Here, there's none of that. He sounds more like Sonic. He sounds like Billy's Sonic. And I'm like, it just does not sound right, man, at all. It sounds terrible, honestly. I thought his performance overall was pretty good. I thought he, matched Jumba's energy and portrayed the character well. I just think the voice he used was fucking terrible. I don't know why him or, the director or whoever didn't want him to go in the same direction as the anime film, giving him the German accent and, sounding a little bit closer to David Ogendez Stirs, if I'm saying his name right, who is the either behind the voice actor page right in front of me. The original VA for Jumba, I play him in the movies and whatnot, man. But I will say, Billy as Pleakley, fantastic. No complaints there. He actually was a great pick for Pleakley. I thought he performed him greatly. His voice matched him relatively close to how he sounded in the original films, and I got no real complaint. But the absolute highlight, besides obviously Chris Sanders as Stitch, who's played Stitch and everything, minus the two Chinese animes it had, that was when Ben Diskin took over. Not sure why Ben took over, not him, but maybe it was a paid thing. I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the anime. Whatever the case may be on that on Stitch's random Japanese and Chinese escapades in the 2010s that I'm pretty sure never got an actual Western release in any sort of capacity, just released in English dubs in Southeast Asia, I think was the whole thing with those two anime series. Regardless of Stitch's little Japan and Chinese escapades, he was great, man. But anyways, as I was saying, the best two is without a doubt Sydney as Nani, and where's the little girl that played Lilo? What was her name? I'm trying to look for her. Maya Kaloha? If I'm probably butchering all these. I am not Hawaiian by any stretch of the so apologies. I probably butchered everyone's names. But as these two were absolutely the highlight. These two were casted to perfection. And I think between the two, I think Sydney was probably this. If you wanted me to pick one between two, she was probably the highlight of the cast, man. She is perfect as Nani. She's perfect. She does the whole older. She matches Nani pretty well, portrays her well as obviously an older sister that's well out of her depth, trying to now become a mother, trying to raise her younger sister. Man, all the things that we love about Nani from the original film is here through her performance, and she's fucking brilliant. Easily the highlight of the film. Maya, who apparently, which judging from how the credits mentioned her introducing, I imagine this might be like her first feature film role, or probably her first major feature film role, I would imagine. They both did a phenomenal job. They were both perfectly cast as Lilo and Nina, and I have no complaints about either of them. The rest of the cast, man, I thought was pretty good, man. Though another one that I really liked was Amy Hill, finally a name I can pronounce, that plays the character's name, I think is Tutu. I'm sure it's probably pronounced differently, but she plays like this older, their next door neighbor who is basically basically like a grandma figure to them, an aunt figure to Nina and Lilo, who is as far as I know, a completely original character for this film, and that was nowhere that was ever mentioned in the original in the movies, the series, nothing. She's a completely new original character, man. And honestly, man, she was the highlight, the best part of the film in terms of the new addition that the film made compared to the original one. She was the best new addition that this film made and changed from the original. She is so amazing. I love whenever she was on screen, man. She is definitely, like I said, she's like more of a grandma figure to the sister, man. She does that perfectly, man. I always loved her when she was on screen, interacting with Lilo, trying to help out Nani when she could, man. She was perfect. Like she fit into the Lilo and Stitch universe so well that I genuinely am wondering if she was initially like a cut character that was going to be in the original film, but they had to cut out. While during production they brought her back in and they put her back in for the live action version. She fits into the series like a glove, man. And honestly, I would love to see more of her. Now, if I remember correctly, a sequel to this movie already been confirmed to be in production, which I'm assuming is going to be adapting Stitch Has a Glitch, I would assume, because unless they're going to tackle the show, that was the sequel. So unless, like I said, unless they're going to be like doing like a combination of the show with the movie that was meant to be a bridge to the show, I imagine that the next movie will be adapting Stitch Has a Glitch, which was a banger film in its own right. But yeah, she was great, man. I loved her. She was easily the best part in terms of the new additions to the film, man, and I absolutely loved her as, like I said, this aunt or grandma figure to Lilo and Nina, man. She was fucking amazing. I loved her. Now, in terms of other new additions, I think that I really liked that this film added was one, they actually expanded a bit more on Nina being a surfer. You guys remember in the original film, she's meant that we see her surfing, but I don't think they ever really mentioned her being a surfer or really being into surfing or what have you at all in the film. I could be wrong though, but I'm pretty sure that never got mentioned. Here they expand on that a lot and mention how she was like this huge surfing athlete. Seemingly she had a bunch of trophies and whatnot, and she really loved surfing. So we had to give that up when their parents died, and she had to take over and become Lilo's guardian, and now her new mother, along with being her sister. So you have that, man. They also make her a marine biologist student as well, because there's a couple of times in the film where we find out that she was seemingly going to go to college, but couldn't go to college due to her parents passing away, and she had to take over and take care of her sister, man. So it seems like she had to cut all her ties from going to college and just focus on raising Lilo. That's seemingly from how the film goes about, because we see her with this magazine about them talking about seemingly going to this university, which I think is like the University of San Diego. I think. I'm not entirely sure if it is that or not, but I think it is. But anyway, being like a marine, going in to learn how to be a marine biologist, which I thought was a nice added addition just to give Nina more character. Because if you really be honest, Nina, unless I'm because it's been a while since I've seen the original animated film, and I do plan on going back to rewatching the animated film just because of obviously some of the problems and some of the main criticisms that this film that they've levied against this film in terms of comparisons to the original film and its story and structure and whatnot. I just want to rewatch the original just to refresh my memory and see okay, I can see what people are getting at when they mention these criticisms. So I don't know if I'm gonna do that today. I might do that sometime next week. I'm not sure, but I definitely want to go back and rewatch the original film at some point. But anyway, I don't think they ever mentioned Nina really having much of anything in her life going on besides, just raising Lilo. I think all we knew about her characterization was she was just raising Lilo. We never knew anything about her being a surfer or her being into marine biology or anything. So I thought giving her characterization, her character just a bit more characterization, a bit more backstory to her, I thought was a nice touch, man. I really like the additions they made to Nina by the surfing thing, as well as making her a marine biologist or wanting to study marine biology. I thought that was a nice little touch. The opening of the film is a pretty strict remake of the original film. It's very close to almost. I think they almost reuse almost all of the same dialogue as reused, or at least they use the same lines and it's shot very similar to how the opening of the original film had. When Stitch goes and breaks out of the spaceship and escapes and flies to Earth. Which I will say, one thing I always loved about Lilo and Stitch, I always thought was cool. I loved the way Lilo and Stitch showed off hyperspeed. I always thought the way they showed that off in the movie was pretty cool, man. And it was cool to once again see it here, man. I always thought Lilo and Stitch had a really unique way of showing off hyperspeed, man. And I always thought that was a really cool thing. Also, one other thing I want to mention real quick. This isn't really something to go on about the film itself, but just something I've noticed, because you guys know that if you guys spend any time on Twitter, you guys know you'll run into people that always are like claiming characters like, oh, this character is autistic coded, this, that, and the third. Headcanons around that sort of thing. Most of the time, I either don't really see what they're getting at, man. This is coming from someone that is autistic, or I just don't care and I don't pay attention because I'm not that one of the people that are like that needs to find representation in everything I watch. You know what I mean? Representation has never really been something that ever mattered to me growing up or now, regardless, man. But anyway, tis their own. As long as they don't be an asshole about it, hand can away. But anyway. And I've even seen tweets, people say like, oh, this character's autistic, and then another person that's autistic, like, no, you people just keep calling characters autistic, that even though they're not actually autistic, and there's been some arguments about that. I remember that was about this one character from Delicious in Dungeons. I remember had a bit of a thing going on there, but I remember seeing some tweets about a while ago, like last year or whatever. Anyway, as I was saying, one thing that I mentioned at one of these headcanons is I remember I saw them stuff. I don't even remember where I saw it, but I remember some people mentioning or theorizing or making headcanons that Lilo is autistic or she's on the spectrum. And this is like one of the few times where I'm like, yeah, I could buy that. Well, just how Lilo acts in this movie, man, her feeling ostracized and feeling like an outsider and whatnot. I could definitely buy that Lilo is autistic. That's like the one character I'm like, yep. That tracks. I could definitely, but I don't know if the creators of the film have confirmed anything, or they themselves said that yes, Lilo is indeed on the spectrum or whatnot, man. But that's definitely something I can see and could believe being true. But yeah, I just want to mention because I thought it was interesting when I started seeing some stuff about that. I was like, yeah, I could buy that. I think that tracks. But anyway, now let's talk about the man of the hour himself, Stitch. I fucking love Stitch. Stitch is my boy. I gotta say, man, he's so fucking cute in this movie, man. There's like in the original film, there's so many moments where I'm just like, oh, he's so cute. I just want to come into the TV and just hug him, man. I love Stitch, man. He will always have a special place in my heart. And first of all, man, like I said before, like I mentioned earlier, Chris, as always, plays Stitch beautifully, man. He's perfect as Stitch, man. And it was good to see both him as well as the leader of the Galactic Empire, whatever the fuck their name is. She seemed to also come back as well from her original. He also got to reprise her role from the original anime film as well in this film, the Grand Councilwoman. So it's good to see that she came back as well, and they didn't recast her as well. She was great there. She was great in the show, and I was happy to see that she got to return in this. She got to return in this, man. She sounded perfect, man. So, but yeah, it was good to hear her again. Anyway, so as I was saying, as I was saying, Stitch. One thing I gotta say, man, is the character acting on him is phenomenal, man. I don't know if they did any motion capture for Stitch or if he was completely hand animated by the animators themselves, man. Either way, man, I loved him, man. His character acting was perfect, man. His expressions, him moving around the environment, man, all sublime, man. Perfection. I got no complaints, man. Stitch was absolutely just amazing in this film, man. They did a great job bringing him over into live action, into fully 3D with CGI. The CGI itself looked amazing, man. The fur looked great, man. Stitch just looked amazing throughout the entire film, man. No complaints there from him. Now, the movie obviously takes, this isn't a shot-for-shot remake. The movie does take some liberties, and while more or less this movie follows the same plot as the original animated film with some obvious major, differentiations with certain characters and characterizations, characters getting cut out and whatnot, characters getting adding and whatnot. They more or less go, but they take different routes. Like, you guys remember the iconic scene with Lee when we get the title sequence, which I must say was really well done. I like the opening of it, where they actually show the Lilo and Stitch title card. I thought that part of it was fantastic. But that whole sequence is a little bit different in this movie compared to the original. If you guys remember in the original, Lilo is like swimming around the ocean, and the sea gets up there, man, and then is rushing over to get to her Lula class, or recital, I don't know which one it was. I think it was just Pratt. Rushing all the way, you got that, oh Banger song. I wish they played it more in the movie. They do play a little bit, man, but you don't really get to hear it until like in the end credits, unfortunately. But it was still great to hear that song, man. I fucking love that song, man. Ugh. Anyway, so the original one, you guys remember, she was just like rushing over there, man, take a photo of the perpetually sunburned dude, and rushed over to get there, man. And then when she gets in there, wow, the recital's going on, and tries to like get in there, try to get in there without hoping no one knows while she's still dripping wet. And you know the bully chick ends up slipping on the water, and you know all that, and you know all hell breaks loose. While here in the remake, I thought it was interesting where she's like going like in a different route, seemingly, where she's like going around some other houses. She like takes like this fishing rod from one of these fishermen, and you know uses it as it makes a makeshift friendship bracelet out of it, man. And then she actually gets her right before they're about to go on air towards the actual dance recital. So right before they're about to go there, man, she gets in there, man, and switches and changes up her clothes. And also one thing I thought was interesting, and this was kind of an interesting change. You guys remember that in the original film when you know what's her name, the chick with the glasses that bullies Lilo. You know when she starts shit talking Lilo just goes in there and just beats the shit out of her, deservedly so, man. She deserved it. Lilo did nothing wrong. If you ask me, she had that coming for. Get your receipt, Lilo. Get your receipt. Beat that bitch. I will always. Lilo did nothing wrong. I will defend her on that. But here in this movie, she straight up just pushes her off the stage, and I'm like, God damn! And that's not also the only like low-key kind of hardcore moment in the movie where during this, a couple other changes I thought that I also kind of that I liked, but I don't know if I'd say I liked them more than the original, but I thought they were interesting changes nonetheless. Was during the sequence, you know, the surfing sequence when you know you get the big surge, which plays out a little bit differently. Not all the scenes from the original one are transition over here. Some of them are like, you know, you still do get Stitch like, you know, like rubbing his head against Lilo, or I think it might have been Nina in the original anime film, to, you know, get her attention to take him down, to take him started with him. Here it plays out a little bit differently, and I think the way it's like the way it was structured was a little bit different as well. But anyway, during this scene, once they eventually wipe out underwater, Stitch is obviously trying to get up there, and he's because you know he still doesn't want to drown, man. But like Sonic, he just sinks, and you know he's like on top of Lilo, and Lilo's trying to get up there, but Stitch constantly keeps pushing her down further into the water because he's trying to get air, and I guess forgets that Lilo's right under him. But when finally Nani gets to her, man, Nani straight up drop kicks Stitch. I was like, damn! She hit that drop kick like she was Demon Finn Balor, bro. I was like, God damn, Stitch. Damn, you didn't to Stitch on poor boy Stitch like that. And then during the sequence near the end of the movie, man, which I don't consider a spoiler because, like I said, most of you have already seen the original animated film anyway, so I don't really consider this a spoiler. But when their house actually gets destroyed, I forget how it happened originally. I think it was just from Stitch and Jumbo tussling around as he's trying to get Stitch to, you know, get him arrested and whatnot, take him back to the ship and whatnot, or it might have been the big guy who you guys know got replaced, and basically Jumbo took over his role fully, basically. But anyway, here, Jumbo just starts opening fire around Lilo's house. Just unprovoked, just starts firing everywhere, destroying her house, be like, oh, you humans are so attached to things. And it's like, damn, bro. I was like, God damn, bro, you doing this shit unprovoked? Why you gotta be like doing this in the house, bro? God damn. But yeah, man, there's some other stuff as well, some other changes. There's also the whole thing they do with the cowboy thing, like with Westerns, with Lilo and Stitch with like the water gun things that are at the bar, man. That's every time they did the cowboy thing was always really cool, man. I thought those were pretty fun. I do like how Plinkly look. I thought Plinkly and Jumbo, I think, looked pretty good in their live action transition. Jumbo's a little iffy, but I thought Plinkly looked amazing. I don't really like them making him look slimy though. I feel like that was kind of an unnecessary change because I don't think he was ever meant to be portrayed as slimy in the original anime film because he wasn't in the original animated series or the movies as well. So I wasn't too sold on him being, you know, looking a little slimy. I thought it looked a little weird. But besides that, man, I thought they both transitioned relatively well to like that, but Stitch was obviously the big one. Which I think now finally brings us to the negatives of the film, which I already mentioned, about, you know, Jumbo being miscast, Pleakley being slimy, I wasn't really too big fan of. Let's talk about the big one, the main one that had everyone in a tussle, and had everyone upset, you know, when the film had finally come out. Ohana, you know, and everything about the themes of family, nobody gets left behind, etc., 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 etc. Now, the way that people were talking about that in the films, in the aftermath of the film's release, and like I said, Sai had mentioned, which go follow her if you guys haven't already. If you guys like Hirawaka, go follow her, man. She's a great mind in the community, man. Go follow her, man. Show her some love. Anyway, as I was saying, so like her more so in particular, but just the general, the general things I was hearing, it honestly made it sound like that Ohana was like completely ripped out of the film, like all the themes about family and never letting anyone get behind, and Ohana seemed like it was completely ripped out of the film. It's not. You do still get the scene of Ohana means family, but I will say it definitely doesn't feel nearly as prominent here as it did in the original film. The whole theme is about family and sticking together and nobody gets left behind. Definitely do not feel as prominent here as they did in the original film. And that's not the only one. Like you guys may remember in the original film, there was also definitely the whole thing about Lilo and Stitch both feeling like outsiders, being ostracized by society and feeling different. And that you had Lilo reading him the story of the ugly duckling or the lost duckling, whatever it was, in which that scene is completely cut out of the film. There's no trace of it at all. That in this way feels way more like subtext rather than being, a more prominent in the forefront of the film like it did in the original film. And during the end scenes where Stitch kind of like asked to stay here and saying like he found his family and whatnot. In the original one he said Ohana means family, I believe, when he was talking about trying to please Kate to stay with him and not go back off to space. He mentioned Ohana means family. Here he says they're my family, I found them all by myself. No mention of Ohana. And yeah, I definitely gotta read, because that's honestly one of the biggest things about Lilo and Stitch was its themes about family and whatnot, and Ohana and all that. And it definitely removing it, I wouldn't say necessarily removing it, because I said, the way people were talking about it, it seemed like that it was completely ripped out of the film. It's really not, but definitely feels way more subdued and nowhere near as prominent as it did in the original film. I will say that, yeah, it definitely does make the movie lose some points and kind of lose some of the impact and the love and the and just the overall, just I don't know what the word is. It just doesn't. It really hampers this film's ability to stand toe to toe with the original film in a lot of ways because of you having it to reduce its messaging reducing its messaging and not having Ohana be as prominent as it was in the original film. So I would definitely agree with the complaints about that one, man. I definitely think that's my biggest complaint with the movie is definitely the way its themes, it's portrayed, how Ohana definitely feels way more in the background, doesn't seem to be as prominent or as powerful or have much of a focus. I don't know, or prominent focus. I guess I'm not entirely what the word I'm looking for is. Compared to the original film, where it definitely felt like that was like the main thing about the film. That was the main themes of the film, man, the main messaging and all that. While here, it definitely feels a lot more subdued, almost to the point where it's like almost meaningless and loses all its power and whatnot they had in the original film. So you have that, man. Though I will say, to not get too deep into spoilers, there's this sequence at the end of the film with Nina and Stitch that I thought was really well directed at the end of the movie. That I thought was pretty well directed, man. So I thought that was pretty well done, I will say. But yeah, that's definitely the main critique everyone had. I definitely would agree to that scene. Though I will say the ending itself I liked, which I heard was also very controversial, was the ending. I personally liked the ending of the film. Like I didn't like me personally, and to not get too spoiled because I don't want to talk about spoilers or spoil things. I overall did like the ending of the film, and I thought it was good, and I thought it made sense, and I like what they did with Nina's character. That's all I'm gonna say about that, man. I honestly enjoyed the film's ending, and I really liked it. Though, like I said, I wish kind of like they were able. I wish they didn't like reduce or like pull back on the family meanings and Ohana and whatnot. Though I will say, this is literally a comment literally someone just dropped on my tweet. When I posted my review of the film on my Twitter, someone had tweeted this. Someone that followed me had tweeted this, and I don't know. And it's definitely a statement that I would agree with. Not fully. I don't think I would fully agree with it, but I definitely a statement that I would agree with. Where he mentions how it mentioned how it was more how. That the original was better for kids, while the live action feels like it's more better or more suited towards adults in terms of messaging and themes and whatnot. And that's something I would probably agree with as well, just the way the film comes off. It feels more like the original film was almost told from an optimistic, childlike perspective in a lot of ways, with the whole things have. Wow, the remake almost feels like it's taking it from a more realistic adult lens in recontextualizing the film I would say. So I would say the statement of this being better, of the original being better suited for kids, while Lyra is maybe better suited or more marketed towards adults in terms of themes and messaging. I would probably agree with that. I would put some stake in that. I don't know the full because at the end of the day, I still think the original animated version. Yes, the original animated version is better. I would say that is a better film compared to the live action one. But I would say I would agree with this statement about the original being being better for kids, while the live action more better suited for adults. I would definitely agree in this statement. But yeah. Also, I gotta say a couple of things I want to mention before we end the video off. Bubbles feels like a glorified cameo in this film, man. Like he doesn't nearly have the same power or presence as he did in the original film, man. He's not played by the same actor, even though he looks about the exact same as Bubbles. I don't know why they just bring him back in here just to play the character again in live action because he met every criteria. Bald, big, black. Give the man some shades and you're golden. I don't know why they decided to recast with another black actor, but whatever the case may be, yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of his scenes were cut out in here, and like he said, he feels like more of a glorified cameo. David also feels like his role was significantly reduced, so I'm not entirely sure with him. I feel like this might have been like the same amount of screen time he had in one, maybe a little bit more. I'm not sure. Like I said, it's been a while since I've seen the original film. The bully character seemed like they also had like Lily and Arlene like 2 scenes, which I feel like they had a little bit more in the original film, but I might be wrong on that one as well. Like I said, it's been a while since I've seen the original film, and I do want to go back and rewatch it just to know for certain, man. But yeah, those are a couple of things I had problems with, man. But yeah, I think that's about everything I want to talk about with Lilo and Stitch. I've rambled on about this film long enough. I'm looking forward to the sequels, like I said, unless they're planning on adapting the show and doing adapting multiple episodes, which I also want to say real quick. One other thing I really liked is that they put in an Easter egg, which this maybe gives some more credence, that they might be adapting, the sequel might be an adaptation of the show plus the Stitch movie that was the lead up to the actual Lilo and Stitch TV series. Not entirely sure. Maybe they'll just adapt Stitch has a glitch, or maybe they'll mix both of them together. Who knows? But when Jumba is like when Jumba gets Stitch back in the ship, which like I said, both of the ships, man, looked amazing here. They made the transition over to the 3D into live action beautifully, man. Both those ships, that both Stitch stole and the one Jumba one that was a big guy ship, both of them look fantastic in this film. Anyway, but when he locks him up there, you can actually see a nice Easter egg is that they show some of the other experiments that were created, and one of them is the sandwich eating dude from the show, man, which I thought was pretty cool. I don't remember the dude's name or anything. I just remember he was always eating sandwiches, and so it was pretty cool to see him in there, man. It was pretty cool to see him. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you guys today. Overall, I give this movie a 9.5 out of 10, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you're new, follow me on social if you feel like it. Links down below, and as always, come back for more. See you guys next time.